Long before the polder lands of Holland bore the weight of windmills, canals, and empire, they echoed with the quiet power of semi-independent noblemen. Among them was Jan III van Arkel, a name largely forgotten beyond the scrolls of genealogists and the carved stones of local churches. Yet his story is one of transformation, a young Dutch lord born of feudal blood and forged in the fires of the First Crusade, whose journey stretched from the muddy banks of the Ling River to the blazing sands of Jerusalem. Jan III's story does not begin with him. It begins with his father, Jan II van Arkel, a man of fierce loyalties and regional pride. Jan II was born before 1035 to Jan I van Arkel and Elizabeth van Kuijk, noble families of the Riverlands. As Lord of Arkel and Hukelum, Jan II ruled a fertile but contested landscape, wedged between the ambitions of Holland's counts and the ecclesiastical grasp of Utrecht's bishops. He married Margaretha van Altena, uniting two powerful houses and fortifying the Arkel domain with alliances that crossed both rivers and bloodlines. It was during the reign of Jan II that the Arkels stepped into broader historical light. In the year 1076, Jan II joined a rebellion that would shape his son's fate. He rode alongside Robert of Frisian, the Count of Flanders, and Dirk V, Count of Holland, to challenge the influence of Bishop Conrad of Utrecht. Their target was the episcopal stronghold of IJsselmonde. It was there, amidst siege and battle, that Jan II met his death, perhaps in what came to be called the Battle of IJsselmonde. The price of rebellion was high, but it burned into young Jan III a lesson that would guide his life: freedom must be defended with both sword and soul. Left fatherless, Jan III grew up in a world scarred by conflict and steeped in faith. His mother Margaretha and his extended family in Altena and Houston ensured he was trained not only in arms but also in diplomacy and administration. Still, the shadow of his father's sacrifice loomed. The church in Spike, built under Jan II's patronage, became a place of memory for the boy, where he watched the candlelight flicker over stone effigies, dreaming of honor, redemption, and perhaps revenge. Then came the call that would change everything. In 1095, Pope Urban II stood at Clermont and summoned all of Christendom to arms. Jerusalem, he cried, must be freed from Muslim control. The Holy Sepulchre defiled, Christian pilgrims attacked. It was a spiritual call, but also a deeply political one. Across Europe, nobles answered. Among them was Robert II of Flanders, son of the same Robert who had fought beside Jan's father. For Jan III, the decision was not just about God or glory, it was about legacy. He would finish the journey his father began. He would take up the cross. The year was 1096. The Pope had spoken, not to kings, but to knights. Not in the language of diplomacy, but of judgment. Deus vult, they cried. God wills it. From the far reaches of Europe, armored men gathered under banners not of country, but of faith. Among them was a young noble from the Riverlands of Holland, Jan III van Arkel. He was not the first of his name to cross into the unknown. His grandfather, Jan I, had perished in Syria years before, aiding the Eastern Roman Emperor against encroaching enemies. His death had cast a long, cold shadow over the House of Arkel. For Jan III, this crusade was more than a holy mission. It was inheritance. It was reckoning. He would ride where his grandfather had fallen, and see with his own eyes the land that had consumed him.
Lord of hosts, guide my hand tomorrow. Keep my brothers standing. Let courage hold where fear would break us. And if I fall, receive me.
Barely into manhood, Jan joined Robert's contingent. The knights from the Low Countries were few in number but high in spirit, minor lords, landowners, and vassals, many on pilgrimage, others on conquest. Jan III joined the contingent of Robert II of Flanders, a Flemish force that marched not as wild pilgrims but as disciplined nobles, trained, calculating, deadly. Their route passed through the Balkans, where Jan encountered the shattered remnants of what was once the cultural heart of the Roman Empire. In Constantinople, mosaics shimmered with golden saints and whispering domes reached toward heaven. Here, for the first time, he felt it.
We need you, Jera.
Christianity could be something other. Not Latin, not Gothic, but drenched in incense and icon, language and law, that felt ancient and alive. They crossed into Asia Minor, and the land turned red. Red from poppies, from sunburned clay, from blood. The campaigns were brutal. Starvation and ambush, betrayal and heat. Jan wrote nothing, we have no letters, but he returned changed. That much we know. Jan carried a banner marked with a swan, a proto-heraldic symbol passed down through generations. The myth began centuries earlier, when another Jan van Arkel, a local nobleman of the 9th century, followed a swan from the edge of the Ling River into the reeds. The bird led him inland, to a spot of unexpectedly firm soil amidst marsh and fog. There he built a wooden chapel, then a stone heap ever in the shape of a swan's wing. He raised the banner of the swan, not as a whim, but as a symbol of a divine invitation. The House of Arkel was founded. The swan remained an emblem of their promise. They would steward the land humbly, rise above conflict, and aspire to harmony. When Jan's grandfather later traveled as a pilgrim, turning soldier in Byzantine service and later dying in Syria, the swan remained with his descendants in cloth and shield. The army passed through Byzantine lands. Jan, though young, took special note of the cities and cultures, Constantinople's domes, Anatolia's stark ridges, the eerie silence of abandoned Roman outposts. He remembered stories of his grandfather, a noble who had died in Syria aiding the Byzantines long before the Crusade. For Jan, these were not alien lands, they felt like echoes. It is early 1097, and Jan III van Arkel, aged around 17, rides with Count Robert II of Flanders' contingent on the long road to Antioch. Across the Alps, through the Balkans, into Constantinople, he has received a gift, a silk scarf painted with Byzantine saints and a small roundel bearing the swan. It reminds him of his ancestry, of both his grandfather and 9th century Jan Swan's guidance, but also of the complexities of empire and authority, not simply Latin or Greek, but something in between. Jan is still focused on the sacred quest, Jerusalem awaits. And yet behind him anonymous faces murmur, Signa, Signa, how curious on the shields. One evening on the march toward Antioch, Jan accidentally overhears a Flemish soldier call another knight, Signa too. Intrigued, Jan discovers a tall Italian nobleman, Count Riccardo di Brescia, riding under a white swan on azure. Noble rivalry spikes, two shields bearing the swan. Impossible. They meet. Riccardo claims his swan is ancient, from Lombardy lineage. Jan claims Arkel lineage and that the swan led his ancestors to found a realm. Riccardo draws his sword and says, either your swan is copy, or mine is. Let steel decide. Jan nods, and they plan a duel at dawn. At first light, Jan and Riccardo meet, mist curling over soft. They remove helmets, two young men scarred by war, eyes bright with adrenaline. Shields aside, swords in hand, the fight begins. The duel is graceful yet fierce. They strike, parry, sweep, sweat and blood mingle on their forearms. Jan is agile, Riccardo commanding. But when the duel comes to account, Riccardo wounded in the leg, Jan stops. He has honor, not pride. He says, your swan is blazoned well, I see your claim is worthy. Word spreads. The Knights of Flanders murmur that Arkel's swan stands for unity. At Antioch, the siege is brutal.
They'll cover it with
Jan bears his swan emblem with new understanding. His wound becomes a badge of mercy, as he allows Ricardo's men to recuperate in the Arkel tents. Jan begins to speak softly of Byzantine mercy, ecclesiastical complexity, and Jewish, Muslim, and Greek presence, unusual courage in a crusader camp. He recalls his grandfather's death in Syria. The swan guided home, yet died protecting others. The same swan that led Jan I to Syria now led Jan III to mercy. Antioch tested them all. The siege dragged on, famine set in, and dissent grew. But Jan endured. Some say he was among the first over the walls when the city finally fell. By the time they reached Jerusalem in 1099, Jan had been transformed. No longer a boy clinging to his father's memory, he had become something else, a man with his own scars, his own beliefs. There is one story, passed through family tradition and hinted in local chronicles, of a duel, Jan van Arkel against a Saracen knight in single combat outside Antioch. Whether truth or legend, it became part of the Arkel family's whispered lore. They say he did not kill his opponent, but disarmed him, and allowed him to flee. Mercy, not weakness, but choice. It was the first crack in the armor of certainty.
Brother Jan, handshake is strong. They will listen.
Tell them our road skirts their fields, not through them. He says the knights will pass by your orchards, not over them, and keep the harvest.
Good. Then our paths are joined.
Then we walk together.
Listen, Bivon. Into the left pass, it's firmer ground. Steady now.
Here, past these hills, we follow the coast 2 more days, then turn inland toward the pass.
Tutosa?
Aye, and from there the road to Tripoli opens to us.
Under the blazing Anatolian sun, Jan and his knights pressed on, each step a scrape of iron on dust, each breath a trial. When the well appeared like a miracle on the horizon, silence turned to grateful laughter.
The hills taught me more than any hall of stone. Honor is quieter than the clash of swords, and the road home is never the same road we left.
Orchards and water. God's mercy at last.
Welcome sight, my lord.
We'll make camp by the stream. Let the men breathe again.
Keep the pace, lads. Still a league to the ridge.
Lord Jan, riders on the lower road. Turkish banners.
Keep the line tight! We'll take the cut between those ridges. Aye, sir. Shields up. Stay close. Follow my voice.
Can't see a thing!
Keep moving. The storm won't last.
There she is, Jerusalem. By God's will. Lord of hosts, guide our hands and hearts. Keep us steadfast on the road you have set before us. There. Jerusalem.
2 on the tower, 1 by the breach. They're changing pace every half turn.
I see them. We'll move when the sun hits the gate. Blind them for a breath.
Ropes to the east side. Bring the braces up, fast but sound. I want that tower ready by sundown.
The ladders are stacked, my lord. Cartload more coming from the grove.
2 on the tower, 3 on the wall walk.
They'll see nothing through these trees, my lord.
Good. Keep watching.
Hold that beam to the rear. Lash it tight there.
Ropes to the crossbars, no slack. That ladder goes up with the tower.
Aye, lord.
Get the wheel set, then we'll roll her forward by nightfall.
Understood. Straps tight. Keep the ladders close till the horn. No shouting. We'll move with the smoke. Hold fast, brothers.
Jan III van Arkel was among the first to scale the walls of Jerusalem, leading the charge. His blade cut a path through the enemy, through the city, through the temple courtyards. The swan flies above his shield as he fights. Blood and dust climbed the city's stones. But above the fray, in the Temple of Solomon, he kneels. Godfrey of Bouillon lays a hand on his shoulder and shouts, "Arise, Knight of the Swan."
In the name of the Almighty, rise, Sir Jan. Serve with honor and keep the peace of this holy city.
May it ever guide you between sword and soul. Jan steps back from the charge. The swan remains, but reverberates with question, did he conquer or betray? The city falls, mercy flees. When Jerusalem finally fell in 1099, Jan stood at its gates feeling not as liberator, but as witness. The holy city had been taken by storm, and the massacre that followed was not the glory the Pope had promised. Jews burned in their synagogues. Muslims were cut down in mosques. Even Christians from the East, Armenians, Greeks, Copts, were mistaken for enemies. In the streets of Zion, gods will have been lost to men's vengeance.
And yet here we stand.
The holy sword weighed heavy.
Keep the watch tonight, my lord.
The victory tasted of ash. Jan spent days in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Not in triumph, but in silence. Here, he prayed not only for the dead, but for understanding. He lit a candle for his grandfather, another for his enemies, and a third, they say, for his own soul. In the aftermath, when the air burned with blood and incense, and the cries of the dying echoed through Zion, Jan stood on the Temple Mount of Jerusalem. There he was knighted by Godfrey of Bouillon himself, one of the most sacred moments of his life. The ceremony, held within Solomon's temple, now the Dome of the Rock, was both ritual and revelation. Jan knelt, and Godfrey placed the sword upon his shoulder. Not just a knight of Arkel, but now a knight of the kingdom of heaven. He remained for some months in the Holy Land. He visited Acre, Tyre, and the ruins of Caesarea. He listened to Jewish scholars debate scripture in the port cities. He watched Muslim astronomers chart the stars in Damascus. He spoke with Greek monks who preserved texts older than Charlemagne. And he began to understand, the kingdom of heaven was not built with swords alone. He did not linger in the Holy Land. Perhaps he was disillusioned by the bloodshed that followed, or simply felt his purpose complete. Returning home, he found a land still marked by local tensions. But now, he had a different presence, a gravity. He married Aleid van Heusden, daughter of Jan II van Heusden. Their union was more than matrimonial, it sealed peace between Arkel and Heusden, two proud houses often at odds. Aleid was older and possibly a widow. Yet their marriage was fruitful. They had at least two sons, Jan IV, who would inherit the lordship, and Falpert, who would found the House of van der Lied, branching the Arkel line. Jan III brought with him not only stories but also perspectives. In the Levant, he had seen Christian rites alongside Jewish and Muslim traditions. He had heard Greek, Arabic, and Latin prayers. His faith deepened not in dogma, but in mystery. He commissioned a small chapel in Dahlem, where Eastern motifs blended with Romanesque stonework. He placed no relics from Jerusalem there, only a cross carved in olive wood and a simple stone brought from Antioch. Under his rule, Arkel became not just a military power, but a center of learning and quiet tolerance. A school was founded near the chapel at Leerbroek, where Jan I had once built in faith. Greek manuscripts appeared in its holdings. Jewish merchants were welcome to trade in Gorinchum when others expelled them. Whether it was memory or repentance, Jan III carried Jerusalem with him, not on his tongue, but in his decisions. He rarely spoke of the war. When asked, he would nod and say, "It is not the sword that sanctifies the soul." He mentored young squires, taught them not just to ride and strike, but to read, to pray, and to question. Jan lived through the tides of regional change. The bishops of Utrecht continued their campaigns. The Counts of Holland pushed north and east. But Arkel held its ground, semi-autonomous, respected, and quiet. Jan governed with a firm but fair hand. He rebuilt bridges, restored local churches, and arbitrated disputes not with might but with memory. He died somewhere between 1115 and 1118. His burial place is unknown, though some believe he rests in the crypt of the church at Spike, near the river where he first dreamed of distant lands. The story of Jan III van Arkel, like so many Frankish lords of the 11th century, does not stand alone. It is woven into the deeper tapestry of European nobility, tribal migrations, sacred bloodlines, and lost identities, a fabric older than the First Crusade. Older even than the feudal castles that rise along the rivers of Holland. The Arkels, according to multiple 13th to 15th century chronicles from Gorinchum and the surrounding region, were said to be descendants of the Sicambrians, a Germanic tribe that stood against Julius Caesar near what is now Cologne. This is no coincidence of legend. Chroniclers such as Fredegar and Gregory of Tours identified the Sicambri as a rootstock of the Frankish people. Over time, as the Roman Empire waned, these tribes did not vanish. They were absorbed, elevated, and repurposed into the very framework of medieval nobility. The Sicambri were among those who crossed the Rhine in the twilight of Caesar's campaigns, fierce and mobile, yet bound by honor codes that Caesar himself feared. They later merged with or became the Salii Franks, the Ripuarian Franks, and other tribal confederations. As Roman infrastructure collapsed, these groups filled the vacuum. They adopted Latinized customs, Christianized symbols, and built upon Roman roads, but their bloodlines remembered older vows, loyalty to kin, sacred oaths of war, and belief in divine guidance through dreams, animals, and signs. It was said that Clovis I, first king of the United Franks, traced his paternal lineage to the Sicambri and bore their fierce spirit into the foundations of Francia. Thus, the noble class of early medieval Europe was not a monolith, it was a mosaic. Lords of Holland, Flanders, and the Rhineland were descended from tribal warriors who had, through centuries of military service, Christianization, and strategic marriages, become stewards of territory and spirit. The Lords of Arkel were one such house, their emergence in the 10th and 11th centuries a localized flowering of this broader legacy. But what united these noblemen, Franks, Normans, Lombards, Burgundians, Saxons, into a single force during the First Crusade? Not blood. Not language. Faith. An oath. The Crusade of 1096 was not launched by kings but by conviction. The speech of Pope Urban II at Clermont lit a spiritual fire that bypassed kingdoms and burned in the hearts of individual knights. They came from different lineages, but swore to a single cause. This unifying thread of Christian purpose, Deus Vult, drew together rival houses who had once fought over land, rivers, and coin. But something deeper also occurred. In their journey eastward, across the Balkans, through Byzantium, into Anatolia and Syria, these knights encountered the ghost of Rome, the majesty of Constantinople, the libraries of the Arabs, and the mystery of Eastern Christianity. The campaign may have been brutal, but it exposed the Western mind to new dimensions: Greek science, Arab medicine, Persian poetry, Byzantine art, Jewish mysticism. For men like Jan III, the crusade was both a mission and a metamorphosis. His own bloodline bears the imprint of that transformation. Modern DNA analysis connects Jan III's patrilineal descendants to the EV13 haplogroup, a rare lineage with roots in the Balkans and Eastern Mediterranean. Often associated with Neolithic migration routes, ancient Thracian and Illyrian tribes, and even the Dardanian populations described by Roman geographers. It is a genetic echo of Jan's own path: west to east, river to desert, sword to relic. Was it coincidence that Jan's grandfather, Jan I, had also traveled east, dying in Syria in the service of the Byzantine emperor? Perhaps not. Perhaps something in the blood remembered the roads of origin. And so the swan returns. That ancient symbol, embroidered on banners and whispered in duel, becomes a metaphor for this entire legacy. A creature of water and sky, bound to neither land nor border, yet loyal to the invisible call. Just as the swan once led Jan I through the marshlands of the Ling to build Arkel's first stone chapel, it led Jan III into the Levant, not only to fight, but to witness. To absorb. To return changed. The House of Arkel was never merely feudal. It was ancient. It carried the voice of the Sicambri, the faith of the Franks, the dreams of Rome, and the sorrow of Jerusalem. In this, Jan III stood not alone, but as a vessel of something older, a song that echoes from the Rhine to Zion, from Cologne to Constantinople. And in that story, we find not only the tale of a knight, but the legacy of a people. Jan III van Arkel was no mere knight. He was a bridge between past and future, east and west, crusader and Christian. A man of two worlds, whose journey still whispers through bloodlines and buried stones, waiting to be remembered. Before the Templars coined their vow, Jan III van Arkel had already lived it. A warrior of the cross, a seeker of the spirit, and a son of two Jerusalems, one fallen by fire and one hidden in the soul. Thank you for joining me on this journey into our shared past. If today's episode sparked your curiosity about where we come from and where we're going, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Search for Origin. Here, history, faith, and science come together to reveal the deeper stories that shaped our world. And if you're ready to walk in the footsteps of the past yourself, I now offer exclusive museum and city tours in the Netherlands and Germany. Discover the hidden layers of art, culture, and faith with a personal guide who speaks your language and knows the ground you're walking on. To book a tour or ask questions, reach out at dukes@tonline.de, that is DJOEKS@tonline.de, or look at the information in the channel's description. Your origin story is waiting. See you all in the next episode.